Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Joe Casey, Chesterfield's County Administrator. Appreciate you all being here and those that are viewing this virtually as well. Preparing a budget, over the last 2+ years has not been an easy task. There's been so many variables under consideration, different influences of the federal government, state actions, trying to create a workplace where we can perform the services for the people, trying to retain talent, trying to recruit talent. Again, so many ideas and initiatives that have arisen over the past 2 years, many of which are embedded now as part of our normal operation because they are providing more and more services. So the FY23 budget, which again starts July 1st, is no different than any budget cycle. But what makes this different is that you are seeing and going to be seeing probably for the foreseeable future is that with whatever capacities we have, it's the investment into our workforce, counties and schools. We're no different than the private sector. We're here to recruit talent. We're here to retain talent. There's the old adage that if you don't take care of your employees, somebody else will. If you don't take care of your customers, somebody else will. Well, this budget is intentional on taking care of both. So, with that said, we actually started this budget process back almost a year or so ago as we saw some of the variables and trends that you've been reading about in the newspapers, whether it's the housing price market or the local economy doing well, whether it's different aspects of federal and state funding or in the influences. So we've been using those variables to define what we wanted to be and who we could be in FY23. Many of the things that we're talking about, some of them have started even prior to July 1st, 2023, so it's just a continuation of what we're doing. But basically what we're going to be espousing today is how we're investing with what we have in the workforce, but we're also buying down the real estate tax rate and other tax burdens upon our citizens and businesses. As many remember, in December, I believe it was, we came out before even the assessment notices were finalized and said our existing 95-cent rate, which was as high as $1.09 about 20+ years ago, and was 96 cents when I first came here in 2016, has come down lower and lower. So we decided in December that 95-cent rate would be advertised at 93 cents. And 93 cents means that under that board approval of the public hearing is that we cannot go above that 2-cent reduction as part of our process. So that was our first guardrail, if you will, that we imposed upon ourselves and made public. Since that point in time, we've been working hard, and the Board of Supervisors have been right there with us of what else can we do with the assessment notices going out, with them now being higher than they were a year or so ago. We are designing this particular budget that is going to be coming out in parts tomorrow as part of our revenue and CIP update, but more formalized as part of a balanced budget March 9th with a 92-cent rate. So we're buying down the budget by another penny. There's still many variables that are left in the budget to be determined. Many actions of the state, as you know, that they're in session still, determining what revenues and/or mandates or initiatives that we need to be doing as a local government or a school system. Hopefully none of that will be adverse to us, and if it is beneficial to us, we will continue to look at ways to reduce the burdens and providing good services to people. So with the real estate rate going down, there are other actions that we've created that may not necessarily get as much attention, but in the proposed budget, we are going to be cutting our vehicle license inspection registration fee from $40 to $20. That's a 50% reduction. And to many people, especially renters who may not have a real estate tax bill to pay, that relief is equivalent probably to a penny or so plus on the real estate tax rate to those households. The more cars you have, the more tax relief you're getting or fee relief you are getting. We amended our real property tax relief scales and the tiers based upon Social Security income adjustments. That methodology was proven to be successful and again, considerate of what the populations were experiencing. So nobody was going to be non-qualifying in a tier that they otherwise qualified before. I believe those tiers have now all gone up by about 6%. Therefore, we are raising our tiers for that by 6%. And then lastly, on the tax bill side, we have changed our thresholds to recognize that those with low-valued cars that were once defined 15, 20 years ago, we inflated that by a nominal rate. So that those types of cars that we once defined as being tax-free are now tax-free. because of growth in values and other adjustments. Cars that were once not taxed became taxed. So we're going to be paying attention to that more so. But that eliminated a tax bill for 14,000 vehicles. On the business side of the shop, we raised our business license, or BPOL, exemption threshold. We raised it up enough to eliminate right now total, I think it's close to 70% of all businesses will not be paying BPOL taxes in Chesterfield County. Again, we're going to continually look at that, because what was once a small business, as it grows by inflationary measures and some nominal measures, we want to grow those exemption thresholds going forward in the future. And last but not least, on the bill burden side, because we recognize there's many ways in which the county sends messages to you as far as fees, taxes, utility bills. So on our utility bill side, we have always had one of the lowest water and sewer rates in the region for customers, and we are only growing that by a 2.6%, which is, again, far below any inflationary thresholds that consumers are experiencing elsewhere. So again, with our budget, what you're going to be seeing is the investment in our workforce, counties, and schools. FY22's budget, or the one we're in, saw tremendous movements that were long overdue for our public safety sworn officers and for our teachers and other certain staff in the school system. We made a statement last year where we're going to go through the same exercise for the remaining county and school employees, and we have done that. So this budget is going to be offering, again, commensurate and significant changes to the pay structures to people so that we are competitive in starting salaries. We don't need to be the leader, but we can be competitive in the starting salary, create a great work environment, have decompression, so those that have time and tenure here are not necessarily making the same salaries as those that are starting out. And what we're going to have, hopefully, with that work environment that we're creating on the county and school side, is a dedicated professional workforce here to serve you and for them themselves to have a nice long career with Chesterfield County. The last aspect of the budget, before I turn over to Mr. Harris here, who will fill in any holes or help answer any questions, is the bond referendum. 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, we were poised to be proposing a 2020 bond referendum. With the pandemic, we felt like that was not a good time. We weren't sure of economic issues, especially in the early stages, to be asking people to commit the county to that much debt, if you will, over the next 5 to 7 years. What we have done since then, is we perfected the question so that the projects that are now going to be detailed out as part of tomorrow's presentation are defined. We have actually put monies aside already and constructed those needs that needed to be done. Most notably, $130 million for 2 middle schools that are in progress under design and development and construction. Hopefully the first of those schools will open up in 2024. Lastly, again, we have tried to increase the capacity now of what that question is, because our base and our variables and our debt management programs are a AAA bond rating that's enabled us to borrow at historically low interest rates. By default, has created additional capacity for us to invest into future capital needs going forward. So all of those things together, I think, have espoused, if you will, a mindful exercise to our workforce, a mindful exercise to our citizens, a very mindful exercise to the citizens most in need of not having us have burdens placed upon them. And with that said, I turn it over to Mr. Harris for any other of his thoughts. And it goes without saying, I wouldn't be able to say everything I just said without the benefit of his knowledge and attention and the staff that's a budget that's in the room. It's an amazing team, some of the best people I've ever worked with my entire life. And they've kept me engaged. They've kept 5 board members engaged so that we try and work together. And I would say their relationship with our school side of the shop, which again is always a challenge in many localities, is not the challenge here. We, in essence, have advocated side by side with them this time their legislative agenda with the state to, again, properly fund their needs and services that have been mandated to them, or hopefully alleviate some of those mandates that are not otherwise funded by the state. So again, the budget team, Mr. Harris, and the school system together, we have tried to function as one team for the one households that we have out there in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Casey. So just a process note, kind of where we are. I think that's helpful to sort of understand. We're getting together today probably 2 weeks before we normally would, maybe closer to 3. And I think that's for a number of reasons. It clearly, as Dr. Casey stated throughout his remarks, the budget process has truly become a year-round exercise with a lot of the economic variables that we're dealing with, the federal monies. I mean, there's pretty much, each month there's something that has to be attended to, and that's especially true in these winter months. So we thought, given where we are in the process, that we thought it'd be better to have sort of this media briefing today. And really the two of the three headlines for the county's budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page, that begins for us on July the 1st. So that's what we're ultimately working up to. But the two main headlines, I think, are the referendum, which is as Dr. Casey mentioned, is 2+ years in the making, and then the tax rate going lower, which we've consistently come down over the last 20 years, but a 3-cent movement is certainly one of the largest, I think, since around 2007. So about 15 years is the largest reduction in the rate. And also, just to sort of put that in some broader context, mentioned quickly the vehicle registration fee, which is something that we're announcing today for the first time. That has the equivalency of about another $0.015. So if you put those two pieces together, effectively for your average Chesterfield household, that's a 4.5-cent rate reduction, which is a very large in terms of our overall rate history. And we're doing it in a couple of different ways, because I think revenue diversification for us is really, really important in this environment. As Dr. Casey said, there's a lot of unknowns, particularly on the state front, where they are looking at different revenue streams and trying to limit those in several ways. So we want to pass along overall financial relief to our residents, our businesses, our customer base, but we want to do it in different ways. And so we're trying to pull a number of levers. So that vehicle registration fee, while that may sound like sort of a footnote in some of the remarks this morning, that it has about an $8 million price tag, and then each penny on the rate is about $5 million. So just from those two movements, you're at 23 plus or minus $1 million of tax relief. You couple that with the items from December, and you've got the broadest package of tax relief that Chesterfield County has ever offered. We in one way or another, we're touching every single one of our customers, and I think a lot of those December actions kind of got lost in the holidays and a lot of other things going on. But to be able to do small businesses, our seniors, some of our lower income residents, and then come back with these broader measures now, all within the space of about 3 months. It's quite a broad package, and we're going to consistently look at that as we move forward. So where are we in the process? Again, tomorrow we will present the simplest way to think of it, the revenue side of our budget. We'll go through the rate assumptions, the fee assumptions, all of those things, and lay out a lot of the unknowns. I mean, this is still a tricky environment in order to present an overall financial plan with inflation being as high as it is. The U.S. economy is, sort of a few, stumping its toe as it goes along. There's geopolitical issues. I mean, you name it, it's in there. The state budget is not finalized for the county or schools. It's something else we have to keep our eye on. So the revenue side, as we know it, will be presented tomorrow, as well as the capital side, more known as also as the CIP. That's where the referendum is embedded. And then we'll come back on March 9th and perhaps get this group back together, and we can talk about the expenditure side of the budget, at the revenue support, obviously, but there won't be as many headlines. Dr. Casey spoke to that well. It is, for the second consecutive year, like most all organizations in the country, focused on retaining and attracting workforce. There's not any broad expansion of programs or anything along those lines. We really want to make sure we're taking care of the folks, whether they're front lines or in a classroom, you name it, to make sure that we can maintain the workforce that really makes Chesterfield County the organization and community that it is. So that's vitally important. March 23rd will be our public hearing, and then another 2 weeks after that, the board finally votes on all of this. So today, tomorrow really is kind of that real kickoff event for the Chesterfield budget process, and then in 2-week intervals leading up to April 6th, we add another layer to the cake, if you will. But public process all throughout the month of March. We'll have the public hearing, but also in-person and online community meetings so that we can get feedback from folks. But I think, as we've touched on here, announcement today, but like the referendum, that's been a 2+ year discussion. You can go back in the last 2 budget documents and see those list of projects, and I'm going to talk about that for just a second. So, and I think it's a much better plan. You know, certainly maybe it's a little silver lining of COVID. We've had a chance to go through and refine our data and continue to pay down. You know, the county aggressively pays down debt every year, which is sort of a strange thing for governments, but that's how we do it at the local level. And so each year that we've waited, more or less, we had provided, particularly on the general government side, more capacity for this upcoming referendum. And we have not done a true general government referendum since 2004. 2013, there was a ballot initiative to support the general government side. However, that was just for the emergency communications system at right around $50 million. But a referendum, I think, as people traditionally understand, is a little broader in that use perspective. And so for this one, we're looking at $165 million on the county side. The schools, you know, again, going through the process at the same point as we are, they will unveil their project lineup tonight, although they have been talking about it as well for at least 12 months, kind of the bundle concept, if you followed that. So they will refine that down tonight within a $375 million bracket for a total of $540 million of expected bonds. Now, one quick note, because I know not everybody deals in this space every single day. That's not, we go out the next day and borrow $540 million. That's an authorization, in this instance, probably over a 5 to 7 year period in which we would expect to go out to the marketplace and borrow that $540 million to support those projects. And that way we're able to stagger those bond issuances and the associated debt service so that we do not have a spike in the budget where it clouds out other things that we want to do. So we maintain that debt service, that overall mortgage payment for the organization collectively, and we try to do that as flat or with very sort of minimal increases over time. That's vitally important for everyone to understand. I don't want anybody to think that, you know, the overall organization is going out with a $540 million issuance the next day. It just sets us up from a capital planning perspective to do that over many number of years. So for us, 165, we will probably be towards the shorter end of that window. We'd like to implement that over the next 5 years or so, and our projects fall in 4 broad categories, fairly balanced, really: parks, libraries, police stations, police precincts, and fire stations. I'll walk you through just some of the highlights. We'll go through more of it tomorrow, and I think Jay is going to make the PowerPoint available to each of you if there are specific questions. But on the park side, you know, we've used some of the one-time federal monies to really make a lot of headway into our park system. There were some permissibilities in there to do so, but we're going to continue to double down on that. Certainly trying to activate our water access throughout the county would be one of those major goals as part of this referendum. There would be 2 points along the James River where we want to make sure that we have access for our residents. It's a real resource, and we haven't done as much over time perhaps to provide that access. So I think that's certainly a headline of the Parks and Rec portion of this at about $38 million. On the library piece, it's a mix of renovation and expansion. We want to make sure we have parity in facilities. So at the Enon and the Ettrick-Matoaka libraries, looking to expand that footprint of those buildings so that it's more in line with what we have throughout the system, and also a Western Hull Street site to be determined, but you know, that's where the growth and development by and large in the county has been, and so putting a facility out to sort of service that need or that end of the county, if you will. On the police precinct, that's a new topic for us. We've been in leased facilities over the duration of the county's history, and so what we're looking to do as part of this is to actually set up 4 county-owned precincts in the 4 service areas for the police department. So that will be that's a new initiative of something, again, we've been talking about for the last several years and starting to dial in on where those sites would be. The first project out of the chute here would be at the Spring Rock Green property that the county has recently acquired. So that's sort of that eastern Midlothian campus at that site. On the fire, end of things. It's really a replacement and renovation. There's no expansion of the service footprint. But we've got some older stations, such as the Chester Fire Station, where just don't fit the modern definition of a fire department like we have in Chesterfield County, and need to expand that so that we can, get the apparatus in there, have the storage, and have all of the, that's an older station. There's been a lot of upgrades and a lot of changes in the fire business since that. So that would be one example of what we're doing there. And then we have some older stations that are still in good shape we want to make sure we stay on top of, such as the Clover Hill Fire Station. So an even balance. There's 4 facilities in there. I can get into more details if you want, but it's really a mix of, again, going in kind of like it is the libraries, having that even, service profile for all facilities, and then ones that need a little bit, might be the right size, but just need to be upgraded, roof replacements and those types of things. So that's the 165 million for us. Again, schools is at 375. Their project list will be revealed for final tonight, but again, shouldn't really be no surprises based on the process that they've been involved in. And then all of that will be wrapped back together, and the board will vote on all of that on April 6th. They have to petition the court to have that ballot initiative added to the election this November. They will do that as a summer exercise. And over the summer into the fall is really when we'll go out and really have a lot of conversation with the community about what the projects are. And then especially you'll see started tomorrow, but just sort of the tip of the iceberg, why we selected the projects that we did. And then that ultimately is voted on by the citizens in November. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Justin, Sarah, Richmond Times Dispatch.
Thanks. Just to confirm your math really quick. So you just were talking about the bond referendum. So we will see the list tomorrow, I assume in tomorrow's work session, 2 p.m. So it's going to be $165 million for the county, $375 million for schools. So it's about like $540 million.
540, yes, ma'am.
Can you repeat her question?
Yeah, she just asked what the total of the proposed referendum would be, 540. And again, I think also worth noting that is what we would be authorized to issue under general obligation. That's where we get our lowest cost of funds. We talk about the AAA bond rating. We can't access that without general obligation permission from the citizens, and that comes via referendum. That doesn't mean we can't fulfill other capital needs over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years. We have other avenues of doing that, as Dr. Casey talked about with the middle schools, but this is what we know and can document today. We would get that permission from the citizens if approved, and then we can fill in any other gaps. As development trends change, certainly in 7 years the world's going to look different. We have other avenues, including pay-as-you-go cash funding to deal with other capital needs. This is not meant to be the entirety of the list, but it is a very solid list, and then we work around the fringes when conditions change with some of the other programs that are available to local governments.
Desiree Montoya, NBC 12.
Could you walk me through again? You were saying this is the first bond referendum since 2013. Is that correct?
It is.
It is.
So in 2013, there was a broad schools package of a little over $300 million. Really was focused on the renovation of existing school facilities, and that's ultimately what it ended up being. There was not that much capacity in that. I think what you'll see from them tonight is a little bit more of a balance between capacity and, again, we have some 100-year-old facilities in the portfolio that need to be updated. But so they did $304 million or so in 13 on the general government side. When I say general government, I'm talking everything that's non-schools, public safety, all of those types of things. We haven't done a broad, true referendum since 2004. And again, as I just talked about, we've done other projects since then. It just hasn't been through a general obligation referendum.
Okay, got it. That's
Yeah.
perfect. And then I think I missed this part, but can you walk me through, I guess, the timeline now with these real estate assessments as well too? I mean, for people at home, they get, these letters in the mail and see an 11.9% kind of thing. I mean, what should they look out for over the next several weeks, and what should they be aware of?
No, that's a good question. She just asked about sort of the assessment timeline, and that gives me to another point we should have mentioned already. Mel Bloomfield, who's our chief assessor, he does not set tax bills. He just goes out, takes what the market value has been determined from, the free exchange of individuals in the community, and determines as of January 1st each year. We have to, by state code, assess, each year at 100% of market value. That's his job. That's the letter that someone receives in the mail. It's not a tax bill. The tax bill is, that times whatever the rate is. That gives you your overall levy. The board has already, before we came in this morning, trimmed that down 2 pennies. Dr. Casey's announcing an additional 3rd penny today. So that ultimately, if it stays there, would be times that 93 cents for tax year 2022, which follows the calendar year for us. So folks just need to continue through the process through April 6th to see where that rate ultimately lands, but also reminding themselves that vehicle registration fee, if you got, 3 cars, you got some kids, that's a $60, reduction in your personal property bill as well. So it's going to come in a few different forms, and I think, again, revenue diversification for us in this environment is paramount. We have to make sure that we aren't solely dependent on real estate taxes, so we're trying to give reductions in a few different spots so that we have, a little more even road ahead, if that makes sense.
But that's all gonna be decided, like the vehicle registration stuff, that's all gonna be decided April 6th.
On April 6th.
Right, and just to help clarify, the process too is while the values are January 1st, the first bills don't go out until after the rates are adopted in April. For June 5th is 50% of your tax bill for the calendar year. The other 50% is due December 5th. Now, those that have mortgages, those tax bills sometimes are escrowed as part of your monthly mortgage payment, not as a direct bill to the taxpayer. Now, those that are renting, it's the landlord or the owner that gets the real estate bill. So hopefully, again, with this tax rate reduction moderating the assessment value increase, everyone's a little bit different. So the overall average increase is an average. There's many people who might have little to no assessed value increases, and there's others that actually are above it.
Perfect.
Sarah King, Chesterfield and Server.
Hey, I've got a whole sort of smattering of questions. So just to clarify, so we're talking about a 3rd cent. So we shaved off the 2. The cap was 2 in December. Today's a 3rd cent, and that'll be codified in April.
As our proposal. So again, what all we're doing today is for what we know, February 22nd, we feel comfortable in presenting a budget that can be balanced, for the foreseeable future at an additional lower 1 cent rate. As we mentioned before, to the degree that there's other news or sources or, economic variables that arise all to the good, state or otherwise, those are all things that are being considered. All we are saying is that we don't need to consume any additional revenues with an expense side of the equation, again, unless there's unfunded mandates or other things that come our way as well.
Okay.
And so this is the county administrator's proposed budget. The
Right.
board's receiving this just like the community is, and so he's confident at 92 cents with what we know, all those other pieces today.
And that'll still go through the public
That's
process.
exactly. Yes, ma'am.
So then the next thing is sort of pivoting back to the referendum, and that timeline was 2004 and 2013. What was the 2004 total package amount?
You stumped me. I don't have that off the top of my head. I can
Okay.
get that back to you. But it was 2004 was a lot like what we're talking about now. It
Right.
wasn't more. It's typically about 1/3 on the general government side, 2/3 on schools, just because of the nature of the facilities we're putting in place. But 2004 felt just like what we're talking about here, kind of that 1/3, 2/3 split. 2013 was a bit of an anomaly just because we were coming out of the recession. Emergency communication system was a vital piece of community infrastructure. So we just held back just that one project because of trying to respond to the economic conditions.
And you said that was around 50 million?
It was, 49 and some change, yes, ma'am.
And then the next thing, with the projects we're gonna be hearing about tomorrow, those will only be with regard to the 165 million.
The school division will release their, official lineup tonight. I mean, you can go see pretty much 90% of what it's going to be just based on their work sessions. But for us, the 165, and Jay will get that to you this afternoon.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And that I should note too, the schools generally on the March 9th exercise help frame their budget to us. And again, the local revenues that are part of our budget would be the slice of the pie, a large slice of the school's budget. And that's a March 9th illustration.
Okay. probably be answered tomorrow, so,
All right.
thank you.
WRVA,
Yeah, so basically, just to reiterate the timeline, the 23rd of March would be a public hearing, 6th would be the final vote on the referendum and the tax rate and all that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and again, the 6th is the vote on the overall budget with the capital plan. There's a separate vote that's needed to create a referendum question. We may not do that on the 6th. We have 60-plus days before we have to send something as part of the referendum
But of course,
process.
that's the vote to put it on the referendum.
Yeah, that was
That's
more
right.
procedural. By April 6th, that list of projects that gets voted on there will be the referendum, but there will be that subsequent action just to petition the court to put on the ballot.
Correct.
Justin, Sarah?
Just one other question. So obviously tonight, the school board is voting on their preliminary budget that they'll be sending off to the county. What is it that you are, hoping with tonight's vote? What is it you're looking for in this budget?
Well, again, the question is about what are we looking for in tonight's schools' actions on their budget. We have actually been at the table with the schools almost throughout their entire budget process, more so than ever, because it's centered around the workforce, whether it's the teacher scales and having them be competitive and decompressed. More so, we did for the first time, I believe, in the county's history, a joint pay study, joint methodology on all other positions of the schools and the county, so we're one family. And so, as Mr. Harris alluded to, that the cost of implementing those studies and the cost as a base, this is not a bonus program, this is a salary for somebody that's meeting, again, their time and talents with us. So we don't lose people, we don't lose good people, and we can recruit good people. So the schools have needed us to be a partner in that exercise. Therefore, a lot of what they're saying and how they're going to be expending the monies, especially as it comes to personnel, which is the vast majority of their new dollar expenditures, is a variable that we've already been working with them on as part of the joint pay studies and the continued implementations of teacher scales.
Any other questions? Oh,
Yeah, one
Desiree.
more clarification. So just to make sure I understand this, so back in December, the Board of Supervisors approved that 2-cent cut, correct? But today you're announcing that like another penny as part of that overall.
Sure. So
Yeah.
what gets a little confusing, the advertisement, if you would, that says our maximum tax rate, without starting the whole process over, usually most governments kind of pick the existing rate and say we've maintained the tax rate. We started the process of saying, no, we want to start the process 2 cents lower. The board gave us approval to advertise that. So the advertisement that somebody may see, because we have to get these advertisements into the paper already, just the advance notices under state law require 30-plus days of notice. So the advertisement that's in the paper is 93. I, as a county administrator, a board of supervisors, even more so, have the ability to propose and then as a board adopt anything at or below the 93-cent rate. But we have said, just based upon our knowledge of just what we've accumulated in the last month, we are comfortable, very, very comfortable of saying we can balance everything that we need and trying to be even more mindful of the tax burdens being hit upon our citizens by me starting out at least with a 92-cent rate.
So that's an advertised, it hasn't been voted on or approved.
The 93 is an advertisement. Hopefully through messages like this, there's a new tax rate in town, and that is 92 cents. And so what happens over the next month or two, again, if we get great news, then we can modify and adjust the 92 or hedge that and say, okay, maybe we need to invest in one-time things to see if these good news stories are longer lasting. But those are exercises that any good government goes through. All I'm saying is we don't need to consume a 93-cent budget from the knowledge we have today.